From the Joy News Center. This is News at 8.
Welcome to the Primetime News Bulletin here on Joy News on Multi TV. Coming up, global credit rating agency Fitch downgrades Ghana from B+ to B. But government says the downgrade is unfair considering the measures it has adopted so far to address the issues raised. Tema District Council of Labour embarks on demonstration over recent hikes in utility tariffs. Clocksack has meanwhile cautioned political appointees not to intimidate its striking members, insisting its industrial action is legal. Former workers under less debt agitate for salaries they say have been unpaid after their contracts were abruptly abrogated. And George Walker Bush Highway claiming more lives through motor accidents, even as residents await additional pedestrian crossings promised. There's also business, sports, showbiz, and international news coming up.
News at 8 with Israel Lai.
In our very first story, hundreds of workers drawn from the Industrial and Commercial Workers Union and the Trade Union Congress in Tema on Thursday morning embarked on a demonstration through the port city to protest the recent increases in water and electricity tariffs. The march was, however, not without hitches. Joy News' Eric Curtis Howard and Matilda Womega report there were attempts by the police to stop the demonstration.
As early as 7 Thursday morning, members of the Industrial and Commercial Workers Union converged at the Tridiasi School Park for the demonstration against the recent hikes in utility tariffs. They were, however, subsequently informed of a court injunction against their demonstration.
Brothers and sisters, late afternoon yesterday, an injunction was served to the chairman of the Tema District Council of Labour. We believe that for such an injunction, the most appropriate time for it to come should be in the morning. I think this development is most unfortunate.
They, however, vowed to go ahead with the demonstration, regardless of the court order explaining that they found it strange that the supposed injunction was served late Wednesday night and at the home of the chairman of the Tema Trade Union Congress. In their defiant mood, the protesters hit the streets, singing and chanting "Yintua" or "Won't pay" in reference to the hikes. The police, at a point, called in reinforcements. The protesters later got ecstatic after they received word that the court order had been set aside. They marched on all the way to the Tema Metropolitan Assembly, having been buoyed by their significant victory over the police.
What happened?
So the government should do well to listen to us before 22nd of this month. Other than that, there will be more we join after TUC on 22nd. So everybody should get himself in readiness. That by 22nd of this month, we will communicate with you and join Accra. That is the gargantuan one.
Officials of the Industrial and Commercial Workers Union later indicated, should government fail to meet their demands before the expiration of the 10-day ultimatum given by the TUC, they will step up the action.
Well, President John Mahama has directed that prepaid meters be installed in the official residences of all ministers and presidential staff. A statement signed by the Minister for Information and Media Relations, Mama Yariga, stated that all members of the executive are also to be responsible for the payment of their bills. According to the minister, the directive was issued at Thursday's cabinet meeting when the president realized during discussions on the new utility tariffs that there was some confusion in the policy covering the payment of utility bills by ministers, and that while some of them had their bills taken up by their ministries, others paid their bills themselves. As part of the president's directive, arrears of bills prior to an appointee moving into residence will be debited to the various ministries and the prepaid meters installed. The directive, according to Mama Yariga, will help improve the financial health of the utility companies and reduce the huge debt owed them by government. He also hinted the policy will be extended to cover other categories of senior public servants. Now, the Civil and Local Government Staff Association of Ghana has spoken out against what it describes as intimidation of its members by some political office holders over their ongoing strike. According to CLOGSAC, contrary to claims that their strike is illegal, it followed the due process in embarking on industrial action. It has vowed to carry on with the strike, which is now in its fourth day, until government accedes to its demands.
Evidence of the strike, which started on Monday, could be seen at some of the offices we visited. The regional secretary of CLOGSAC, Samuel Collising, who was speaking to Joy News after a news conference on the intimidation of its members, said their strike is backed by the Labour Act 2003.
We are telling our members it is a legal strike action and no one has the right to intimidate them. And then those intimidating them should desist from doing that, because it is a legal strike action which is backed by the Labour Act. If they do not know, they should go and take the Labour Act and go through it.
He described how some of the members are being intimidated.
It is still in effect until they hear from the leadership of CLOGSAC. They should not report for job. Those political authorities trying to intimidate our people, they should stop doing that, because it is against the labor law. They should know.
The government agencies most affected by the strike are the Registrar General's Department and the Births and Deaths Registry. There was virtually no activity at the registry, whilst the Registrar General's Department had lost most of the usual hustle and bustle. Some of the affected persons shared their frustrations.
In fact, I'm really affected because all the long way from the northern region to Accra, only to come to meet this disappointment, I don't know. So I am counting on the government to do something about it, because it's really serious.
I don't think I'm the only person. A lot of people out there came here and then they left. So it's retarding the progress of the country. Already we are in economic crisis. You know, B+ to B. We are still going down. Why not move rather up than rather going down? If there's this thing, fine. Government, see to their needs, solve it in a way, have dialogue, and then we move up there. Always strike here, strike there. This is not helping the nation, please.
CLOGSAC is agitating over allowances it says is due its members under the single spine salary structure.
The George Walker Bush Highway is yet to see the additional pedestrian crossings promised in the wake of the numerous motor accidents recorded there, especially at the Abeka-La Paz intersection. Meanwhile, the highway is continuing to claim needless lives through accident, maintaining its notoriety as a killer highway. Joy News' Ya Fusua Jemfi went on to the highway and reports there are still significant risks to pedestrians.
According to statistics released by the National Road Safety Commission, the George Walker Bush Highway, along with 3 other highways in Accra, claimed a significant chunk of the 500 lives lost to accidents between July and September this year. The highway, however, started claiming lives right after its construction, prompting pleas by residents living in and around the Abeka-La Paz stretch for government to do something about the carnage. The residents at some point even staged a demonstration and blocked the road, after which there were assurances that additional footbridges would be introduced. At the heart of the problem is the positioning of the footbridges on the highway. There are currently 6 footbridges on the 14.1-kilometer road, except they are far between each other.
I don't know what they took into consideration before bringing the footbridge to this extent, because most of the people that are supposed to use the footbridge is at the where the traffic light is. I can choose to walk here and cross and take a car and go back, but how many people can do this?
Many therefore cross the highway, regardless of the danger they are exposing themselves to from the fast approaching vehicles.
After several calls being made to authorities to construct new footbridges for pedestrians to have easy access in crossing the road, not much has been done about the situation, and pedestrians still find difficulty in crossing the George Walker Bush Highway.
Our cameras capture the difficulties the pedestrians typically go through in an attempt to cross the highway. Some drivers, out of pity for the pedestrians, sometimes stop in the middle of the 3-lane highway. There are those who also scale the metal railings in the median. One of the commercial drivers operating in the area explains what they have done by themselves to solve part of the problem.
The way I nipano cross road no rough no and easy. It's ama GPL to Protua and the Tiger. Akabomo ama yehu Tasano Pani Mr. Champon and a woman authority I just said Yadia to me Quanachia Crana Yadia to man said Baya Obi Coca Swa on cross road Nankunu.
Though a significant effort, the risks associated with using the highway are far from being eliminated. And until something radical is done about the situation, pedestrians risk losing their lives on the George Walker Bush, may I add, killer highway. Reporting for Joy News, Yafusuya Jimfi.
We have more news coming up after the break. Don't go away. Now, global ratings agency Fitch Ratings has downgraded Ghana's credit rating. The sovereign rating was lowered to B from B+ with a stable outlook, because it says government said it won't be able to meet its target to narrow the budget gap. Bloomberg reports that Deputy Finance Minister George Rickett-Hagan had told them government is unlikely to meet its deficit target of 9% of gross domestic product. The B is 5 levels below investment grade. According to Fitch, Ghana's creditworthiness has been further weakened by the government's failure to fully implement its fiscal consolidation plan in 2013. It adds that this follows a sharp widening in the budget deficit to 11.8% of GDP from 4% in 2011 and rising debt levels, which as a percentage of GDP have risen to 48.8% between 2011 and 2012 from 38.3%. It says Ghana continued to overrun on wages, interest costs and arrears, leading Fitch to expect that the government will fail to meet the 9% of GDP fiscal deficit target for this year. The statement, however, acknowledges efforts by government to improve the situation, such as the decision to sharply increase utility tariffs and scrap the fuel subsidy, as this reduces the risk of an overrun in the coming fiscal years. It says Ghana's external vulnerability has increased since the rating was last reviewed in February 2013. But government has described the downgrade as unfair. A statement from the Finance Ministry said the downgrade is unfair because despite the implementation of several measures to resolve the issues, for example, the removal of subsidies, Fitch decided the issues remain significant enough to justify a lower sovereign rating. The statement outlines the various steps government is taking to address the issues raised by Fitch, but insists Ghana's medium-term economic outlook remains strong. Government also describes the current difficulties as an aberration and that the country is already showing signs of returning to the medium-term targets it has set out, adding that despite the lower rating, the country is viewed as among the most friendly investment environments in Africa and one of the best governed in Africa, according to the World Bank. Their statement concludes that these strengths, along with the country's diversified commodity engine, strong services sector, and above all, the hard-working Ghanaian people, makes government confident that all the pieces are in place for sustained economic growth to deliver prosperity for the country and return to the higher credit rating it deserves. Agitated workers of the Local Enterprises and Skills Development Program LESDEP today besieged its offices at Labone here in Accra, threatening to cause mayhem. According to them, the organization has refused to pay them their accrued salaries after abruptly ending their 2-year contract without notice. Matilda Nyakwa Dennis has more.
The Local Enterprises and Skills Development Program LESDEP is a public-private partnership under the auspices of the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development with a mandate to create and facilitate the acquisition of technical, entrepreneurial and other specialized skills leading to the creation and management of sustainable businesses. This led to the employment of about 120 mechanics who were to assist some Chinese workers manufacture vehicles across the country. These experienced mechanics tell me they were promised 1,100 Ghana cedis each month and an extra 300 Ghana cedis in monthly allowances. They, however, say apart from the allowances, nothing was paid to them until January 2013 when the contract was abruptly abrogated.
The problem is, after the end of the contract, they give us a letter that the contract has ended. So we should come for our letters so that they give us something small to send us off. So that we see our salary is not coming. The end of contract money too is not coming.
Actual money was 11 million and they give us 3 million.
You see, the money was supposed to be 11 million because the Chinese people told us that the contract that they signed between our government was 11 million. And we learned, they said they should give us all our money. And one of our management said that because we are young, we cannot manage that 11 million. So they are giving us 3 million so that they will keep the rest for us. Are we too small? Are we small boys that they will keep our money for us? 2 people have died. 2 people.
So we work up to 8 months. The contract hasn't ended. And they call us that we should all gather in Accra. Since they called us in January and they told us this thing, they didn't send us again. And they said we should go home. When they need us, they will call us.
They also accuse the LESDEP of giving each worker only 600 Ghana cedis as transfer allowances.
And what I know for sure is that if you are transferring somebody from one point to the other, the money that the person is taking needs to be increased. Because the place that the person is going, the person doesn't know anybody at that place. You need to rent a room, buy 1 or 2 things at your place or at your disposal. You went there, fine, they give us something to rent a room. And you cannot determine that this very place, I'm going to rent a room for even 600 Ghana or even 700 Ghana. You don't know. But they give us 600 Ghana, that is 600 million. Whether you like 6 million. 6 million, that's 600 Ghana. For us to go and rent the room alone, for us to go and rent the room for only 1 year.
When the news team contacted the communications department of LESDEP, they declined to speak on camera.
Hello, welcome to Joy Business. My name is Abigail Adumakwenchi. Now, experts in the petrochemical industry are calling for revenues from the oil and gas sector to be channeled into developing other sectors of the economy, particularly the agriculture sector. Speaking at a dialogue session at this year's National Policy Fair, they indicated leveraging resources in the oil and gas industry with resources in other parts of the economy will ensure the needed growth and also do away with the much-feared Dutch disease. Ghana's oil discovery on the 26th of June 2007 could be a blessing or curse depending on how the resource is managed. The Jubilee field is currently producing in excess of 110,000 barrels of oil daily upon resumption of production over the weekend after a shutdown for maintenance. The 10 and Sankofa fields are also expected to come on stream in the second half of 2016. The 3 fields collectively have reserves of 1.2 billion barrels with an upside potential of up to 5 billion barrels. Gas, another discovery in these fields, also has an estimated reserve of between 3.5 and 4 trillion cubic feet. In the light of the resources available in the sector, speakers at the 4th Ghana Policy Fair on promoting the petrochemical industry for accelerated economic development insisted on the appropriate management of these resources to benefit Ghanaians. For them, integrating oil and gas resources with other sectors of the economy, particularly agric, is key to growth.
If we do things the way we have started, being rent collectors, allowing substantial portion of the spending to be done outside our economy, allowing the growth to be coming from that enclave industry, Ghana may not be able to escape the curse of oil. Because the only way we can maximize benefits from this industry is how fast we can integrate the oil and gas sector with the rest of the economy. This is what can create the jobs, this can add value, this can create more incomes, and this is what will enable Ghana to escape the oil curse.
And when we collectively leverage on these resources with our uniquely endowed other natural resources, such as bauxite, iron ore, manganese, limestone, salt, we are in a unique position to develop a petrochemical industry that has the potential to provide the needed employment for Ghanaians and ultimately create considerable wealth and also economic development for this country.
Others also indicated the petrochemical sector will attract investments with the appropriate handling.
With the current oil find, this is really going to, promote investment into the country. Investment of various infrastructure. We are looking at refineries. There's a need to look at refineries that would want to process these products further into fertilizer and other plastics and inorganic materials. There's the need to regulate every aspect of it. And all these things within the regulation would also need to attract investment.
Other speakers also asked for the capitalization of the Ghana Gas Company, which is expected to be the driving force of the petrochemical industry. Well, away from that, the Graphic Communications Group Limited, publishers of Ghana's biggest selling newspaper, says it is well positioned to take on the several printing jobs which hitherto government would award to foreign contractors. Its managing director, Kenneth Ashibe, is therefore expressing optimism that it will from now win most of such government contracts, such as the printing of textbooks for schools in the country. He has been speaking to Joy Business about strategic changes at the media group, which he says have made it very competitive.
The Daily Graphic, since it was established in 1950, has managed to position itself as the main point of reference when it comes to verifying the authenticity of news. Its credibility, the managing director says, continues to earn it several awards.
The values that we stand for, excellence, innovation, quality, involving our people generally in the way we do our things. But most importantly, we define quality from the perspective of, one, the reader, and two, the advertiser. So apart from the standards that we have, our journalistic standards that we have, standards for the quality of print, standards for what language we use, our credibility and everything. But we still take consumer and customer insight into consideration.
But the company's business is no longer limited to printing newspapers.
We value our human resources. We believe they are the strongest assets that we have. They are the reason why Graphic, though a state-owned paper, on a constant basis, we're making profit, we're declaring dividends, we are generating value for the shareholders and also the stakeholders. It's interesting to find out that Graphic is one of the companies that the King, Cecil King, the Mirror Group opened in West Africa, that is still standing and doing very good business.
He adds that the print technology they have available now allows them to do so much more.
We have just added another accessory to the press, which is the cutter fold, which would enable us to be able to print textbooks or books generally on a web press. So what will happen that with this, what Graphic can do in collaboration with other printers locally is that this whole issue of taking textbooks that the government prints for our schools outside to China and to the Middle East and the Far East to go and print because of quality and cost. This web press would enable us, partnering with other local printers, to be able to print all the textbooks in really good time at very high quality at also competitive prices, then working with all the printers because there's a lot of finishing capacity currently in the system.
He also talks about adding courier to their range of services.
Vehicles that send the papers into the regions would be able to take your whatever dry cargo you have. So if you have anything you want to send, you just bring it in by the same quality that would deliver the paper, the same agency with which we deliver the paper, and even more would be able to deliver your products up to you. So this is something that we want to share our strength and then also the excess capacity we have when it comes to our fleet and then our distribution system.
The Graphic MD, formerly with the Multimedia Group, praised the electronic giant for its contribution to the development of the country and commended Gifty Ando-Apia on her recognition at the CNN Multi-Choice Journalist Awards. Emmanuel Ante, Joy News, Accra.
Now back to our story on Ghana's credit rating. Government has described the downgrade as unfair. A statement from the Finance Ministry said the downgrade is unfair because despite the implementation of several measures to resolve the issues, example the removal of subsidies, Fitch decided the issues remain significant enough to justify a lower sovereign rating. Well, some economists Joy News has spoken to agree with government the downgrading is unfair considering the measures that have been put in place, such as the removal of subsidies on utility tariffs and petroleum products. They've been speaking on today's big story.
It is unfair. They can make a comment about the level of the debt, but to go ahead to downgrade, because downgrade is a serious matter, because you are giving a signal to those people who will want to invest their debt capital, especially in government-related activities, that they ought to be extra careful. For you to make such a comment, your facts must be very, very, very correct. It does not mean that those who are interested in doing business with related to debt capital with government will not do it. They will continue to do that. But if this is imbibed very well in their plans, then they will be calling for higher rates with government. And that means that government will have to take in those loans at a higher cost. So that is a risk to what has happened. So that is, the economy is about managing information. So if you put in a mechanism to address the problem, you need to come to the people of Ghana from time to time to tell them how the measures are working. So if you keep quiet and only after when a rating has been given against you, then you come out that we are doing your best, I do not think that that is the way we want to go. We need to give a certain time frame to see how the measures work very well. And knowing how the rating agencies have been working over time, the challenges they themselves are facing to the extent that some people are calling for themselves to be downgraded. Anytime they come up with a statement like this, we also need to interrogate it very well to see whether they are very fair.
They were looking at some proactive action government is taking to, first of all, reduce its deficit. Our fiscal strength is still not too strong as we speak. I mean, we are having challenges as a country. We all acknowledge that we are having challenges, and government is making some effort. But however, it then will make you wonder how we got to this position. I mean, a lot more of this, how we got to this position is where I guess Fitch is really not convinced about, because we have come to we've come to a time where Ghana was, at a high GDP growth of about 14%, and we were expecting that, and I believe Fitch's point was that we're expecting that growth trajectories could continue, and then government could check its expenditure. However, that was not done. So Fitch might give really a clear indication that that is what it's going to do. What we should have done as a country was to make clear what the challenges we are facing and how we are going to solve them. You will recall that donor partners came up, what brought us to this far? I mean, where we have some serious economic challenge. I guess a lot more transparency in some of the things and reporting of some of the things the government is doing could help.
Well, Director of Communications at the Energy Ministry, Edward Barr, says though he agrees with the TUC that the recent tariff increase is high, embarking on a strike or demonstrating is not the way to go. He explains government is still subsidizing consumers at about $400 million and will not allow them to unduly suffer. He is therefore asking the TUC and all utility companies to cooperate with the technical committees set to see how the automatic tariff adjustment will take effect.
We do agree with what TUC is saying. This is an increase that is very astronomical. That could disorganize people's budget and other things. But demonstrations and ultimatums are not the way to go, in my humble opinion. I think that what His Excellency the President himself said, that if all stakeholders can cooperate with the technical committee, we could fashion out how these things could be implemented. We could also fashion out going forward what should be the strategy. If you look at that particular tariff that have been made, just for only fuel alone, if they were supposed to collect, VRA was supposed to collect the tariffs for say a year, it's going to cost them, they are going to rake in about $900 million a year. Meanwhile, in terms of their fuel purchase alone for the same year, it's going to be $1.3 billion. So it means that they have a deficit of $400 million to take care of. So government, just on fuel purchase alone, government will be subsidizing the consumer about $400 million. So the other appeal also to VRA would be that, look, yes, these things are not enough. And based on the figures I have just mentioned to you, tells you that it's woefully inadequate, but that they need to make do with what they have now. Cut down on their inefficiencies. And I know that they need more money to be able to do this. But the truth of the matter is that they must also be able to realize that there's one thing wanting the money and there's another thing being able to pay. And the PRCs, in the PRC's own ways, and they think that they can do with this for now.
As always, a pleasure bringing you business. I'm Abigail Adumakwenchi. Georgia Ado comes up with sports.
As part of the 4th Annual Ghana Policy Fair this year, the pioneers, some heads and lovers of the creative arts industry have come together to discuss and share some ideas as to how to improve and make the creative arts industry more marketable.
The 4th Annual Policy Fair, which was held at the Accra International Conference Center, clearly did not leave the creative arts industry out. At a dialogue session, issues discussed were all aimed at promoting the creative arts industry and also to accelerate national development. Speaking at the dialogue session, stakeholders James Ebowhite, Kwawansa, David Dontor, and the Deputy Minister for Tourism, Culture and Creative Arts, Jifa Gomashi, all shared their observations about the industry.
The reality in Ghana is that we are losing every sector of our nation and of our economy to foreigners. Almost every sector. Banking, telecom, everything, transportation, we're losing all of it. We're losing all of it. The question is, would we also lose the arts? Indeed, even in the arts, we're fighting a losing battle. Turn on the television today, and what you're likely to see at this time will not be a Ghanaian content. It will be a foreign content.
Love and spoke to our aspirations have been replaced with music that neither make any reference to who we are as a people, nor the relevant impact on our development.
Let's build a people's trust in the heritage and pride of this great nation and make our people a part of each day.
We need to appreciate who we are. We need to value what we are, our culture, our traditions, our way of life.
The sector minister was happy about turnout at the session.
There are a lot of people who do not know the potential in the creative arts industry, and I think we've been given a very good platform. And from all the discussions that have gone on, we have shown without doubt that the creative sector is capable of changing the economy, creating jobs, distributing wealth, and then reducing unemployment.
some patrons spoke to us. Meanwhile, Ghanaians are being advised to be proud and project their culture.
Before we go, look again at our top stories. Global credit rating agency Fitch has downgraded Ghana from B+ to B, but the government says the downgrade is unfair considering the measures it has adopted so far to address the issues raised. The Tema District Council of Labour has embarked on the demonstration over recent hikes in utility tariffs. Clocksack has meanwhile cautioned political parties not to intimidate its striking members, insisting its industrial action is legal. Former workers under LESDEP have been agitating for salaries they say have been unpaid after their contracts were abruptly abrogated. And the George Walker Bush Highway is claiming more lives through motor accidents, even as residents await additional pedestrian crossings that were promised earlier. And that's it. For more news, log on to myjoyonline.com.